For more than 100 years, Field & Stream has prided itself on telling the best hunting and fishing stories, in print, online, and through video. Now, we're bringing our blend of storytelling to podcasts. If we do our job right, then listening to or watching this podcast will feel like you're at a familiar hunting or fishing camp. We'll talk gear, we'll trade tips, we'll discuss the news, we'll play some games, and we'll do our fair share of bullshitting. Best of all, we'll tell stories, because telling stories is what Field & Stream does better than anyone else. I'm your host, Colin Kearns. Welcome to the Field & Stream podcast. All right, every episode of the Field & Stream podcast is going to begin with a segment called The Season, where I'll chat with a guest about a specific and special stretch of the hunting and fishing calendar that's in season right now. Now, my list of for people who would be the first guest on the season was very short. In fact, there was only one person I wanted to chat with, and not just because he happens to write a column called The Season for Field & Stream magazine. And that person is longtime Field & Stream writer at large and my longtime buddy, T. Edward Nickens. Eddie, how are you doing?
Well, I'm better now. I was a little offended at being a guest because I thought we were just pals, but you cleared that up, man. So I am doing just dandy.
Awesome. Well, I've been looking forward to chatting with you for this. Being the Renaissance man that you are, we could have picked any number of topics to chat about for this segment. But this week, we're going to talk about wood ducks. And if you don't mind, I'm going to read a little passage from something you wrote. And I think when folks hear it, I think they'll understand why I wanted to chat with you about wood ducks. So, my own obsession with these ducks is not just a hunting season event, but a year-round malady. Whether I'm in the woods scouting for turkeys, running the dog, or even fishing a farm pond, let me catch the faintest notes of the woodie's hooey, hooey whistle, and you can clock me out and count me gone. I'll leave a tree stand or a bluegill bed, vanish into the woods, and return wet to the waist with bloody forearms from catbrier and vine and smelling like beaver musk, with a smile as wide as my hat brim. If there's a wood duck water to be found, I will find it. Pretty words, Eddie.
Man, I own every one of them. You know I love a wood duck.
I know you do. So let me start there. When did your wood duck obsession begin?
Man, that is a good question. I didn't grow up duck hunting at all. It wasn't until I was in college that I started duck hunting here in North Carolina, and they just seemed accessible at the time, Colin. I didn't know it. I didn't know duck hunting from painting a fence. I didn't know painting a fence either. I was an English major, so that kind of worked beyond the pale. But I first started seeing these things in the swamps upstream, up some tributaries of some reservoirs around Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And maybe it's a little bit of familiarity at first. They were in my backyard. They were my ducks, and it kind of stayed that way.
Yeah.
I think a wood duck's what led me to love a beaver swamp like I love a beaver swamp. It's probably what led me to love smelling like beaver musk, like I love to smell like beaver musk. But partly it was I think at the beginning it was the familiarity, right? It was a duck I could literally get my hands on.
Yeah.
And it is a year-round thing here in North Carolina. We've got a huge resident population. So you saw them, you saw the babies, you saw the nestlings, you saw them all year long. So I'd say familiarity at first, and that sort of bred obsession, I suppose.
Gotcha. Now, when I think of you and wood ducks, the settings, they're not always the most, I guess you could say, inviting locations or welcoming. I think of a lot of thorny briars and brambles, beaver musk, like we just talked about, a lot of mud to get through, all for these ducks. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. One of the things about hunting wood ducks where I live is you've got to get away from all the other people. So sort of the harder it is to get in, the better. The longer the more blowdowns, just the more crap you got to fight through. But that's that makes you really grateful for what you get in the end.
Sure.
But you characterize them as inhospitable. But man, I got a farmer friend that I hunt 3 or 4 of his swamps. And most of his land is taken up in deer leases. But he keeps a couple 3 of these swamps out of the lease for me. He said one time, I told my daddy, he said, Daddy, Eddie, he loves the swamp like Peter loves the Lord. And man, I love a little swamp, a big swamp. I love that gothic look to it, that sort of darkness and ancientness. And man, this little jewel drops out of the sky. And it's just, man, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it.
Well, that speaks to, I mean, what comes along with going through all those blowdowns and getting away as far away from people as you can to find these spots is a sense of discovery. And I imagine that's got to play a big role in what you enjoy so much about this season.
Yeah, and it's a discovery that takes place year after year as beavers impound these creeks, and then those beaver ponds age and the timber dies out and the beavers move on. It's never the same. You can't go to where you thought, you can't go this year to where you can't return this year to a beaver swamp that you had success in last year, in the dark on opening day.
Yeah.
And think you're gonna luck out. These swamps are organic. They're living. They change. They grow. And that's one of the things I love about it, is just that year-round scouting, like we talked about earlier. And man, I'm out there in the middle of the summer when it is just nasty, just me and my dog, and sweat and spider webs, and I don't know why.
No humidity at all, I imagine. A nice dry heat.
North Carolina is Latin for no humidity. We all know that. Yeah.
Yeah. All for the water bird and a bridal dress, right?
All for the water bird and a bridal dress. I mean, nobody's ever named a critter more aptly than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a beautiful thing.
So walk me through your kind of process. Let's say the night before the opener, or the night before your first wood duck hunt of the year. What's going on in your mind? Is the Eddie Nickens, I imagine, tinkering with his gear, packing things up till the last second, or what are you thinking?
This is where wisdom comes into play, young man. The night before opening day, I am cooking my wife a lavish meal.
Of course.
Presents piled up on the table as a penance for what's getting ready to happen for the next 120 days. But as far as ducks go, I've kind of pared down my wood duck hunting kit of late, and I don't mean to be that guy, but I bought a stool of wooden decoys from a friend of mine, and I take in 6 hand-carved wooden decoys. I take in 2 butt ducks, which I used to use a jerk cord a lot, and I still like a jerk cord, but I have found in that tight cover, those wood ducks are coming in so fast and so early, and it's so dark, you have no time. And if I'm trying to mess around with a jerk cord and they got to drop that and they got to get the gun, I'll lose opportunities. So I've switched over from a jerk cord to a couple of butt ducks. It's given just enough movement, just enough flash and splash. And I don't have to think about it. I can concentrate on what I'm looking at, because that first flight can come super, super fast. But the night before, the most important thing is to set my alarm clock for about 45 minutes earlier than I really want to set my alarm clock. Because no matter how many times you've been into one of these big swamps or how many times you've had to fight your way into some little swamp, it just, if you're not there, if you're
Yeah.
not there set with your finger on the trigger 30 minutes before sunrise, you're too late. And I like to get there and get my mess together and straight and not stress about it. So the night before, I'm thinking, all right, just get yourself up.
Okay.
An early start can fix a lot of mistakes.
Gotcha. Are you usually going solo these days, or do you hunt with a buddy?
You know, it just depends. Both. I've got some friends with some great swamps that we hunt with, but
Mm-hmm.
I've never minded going alone.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot of equipment. I've got a dog. Um, I can I can I can shoot like 360 degrees. You know, I don't have to worry about
Yeah.
anybody else in the swamp. So, but you know, it's a very social, congenial pursuit, wood duck hunting. You know, it's not like I mean, I'm not disparaging the wood duck in terms of its wariness, but you know, it's not like you're trying to fool 18 pintails into dropping down in your
Yeah.
decoys. So the buddy part, the buddy part is fun, no
Yeah.
doubt.
How much does calling play a role, or it doesn't play any role at all when you hunt wood ducks?
You know, what you hear about wood ducks is that calling doesn't matter, that decoys really don't matter, that a lot of the traditional duck hunting skills may not matter. I would say they all matter.
Mm-hmm.
They don't matter as much,
Mm-hmm.
but they all matter. I think you learn different waters and where wood ducks like to land. I'm going back sometimes to swamps, you know, over 3 or 4 or 5 years until they mature and I have to move along. But decoys matter, movement matters a lot, especially early. I've used a spinning wing dove decoy a bunch on a wood duck hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And calling, I don't know. I don't know that calling makes a whole lot of difference,
Gotcha.
but it's fun.
Yeah.
It's easy. And there's no doubt when wood ducks are on the water that you can call them into the decoys. There's no question. I've killed a lot of wood ducks calling them into the decoys and then jumping them out of the decoys. They will respond to that two week call on the water.
Well, if memory serves me, maybe 15, 16 years ago, that's how I shot my very first wood duck with you in North Carolina, I believe. One had landed and you called it into the decoys and we jumped it, and that duck still sits proudly above my desk in my home.
I love it. And that was such a beautiful little swamp
Yeah.
back there, just tucked away. Oh man. That was a great place. And I still hunt really, really close to there, Colin. As a matter of fact, within about 200 or 300 yards of there, I've got a swamp that I hunt.
Yeah.
Good memories.
Very
memories.
good. Okay, so as the seconds tick, got your decoy spread set, you're in position. As the seconds tick towards shooting light, take me in your head again. What are you thinking? You know, how hard is your heart going?
Yeah. Well, let's back it up a little bit, because before you really figure out where you're going to stand, especially if it's somewhere new, sort of being forensically minded about that skyline in front of you is critical, because those first ducks are going to come in and you're going to see them silhouetted against the sky. And then as soon as they drop below the tree line, you have no hope. And so trying to get to where you have a maximum amount of sky in front of you and the horizon is as low as possible, even if it's just a little gap in the trees on the far side of the pond, can make a big difference. So that's the first thing I'm doing, is trying to figure out how I can see these things silhouetted against the sky for as long as possible. After that, at the very beginning, I don't worry too much about staying behind the tree or camouflage. And I will say, I am full on mask, gloves, the whole works. I think that makes a huge difference, not just with wood ducks, but with all ducks. one of the things that I always do is work on my foot set.
Okay.
And I want to get as firm a footing as I can. And with wood ducks, you never know where they're going to come from. So I need to be able to spin around, and these choked in beaver ponds, there's always all kinds of down trees and everything. And I've got to make sure that I can twist. I don't need to walk. I don't need to take a step,
Mm-hmm.
but I need to be able to shift my feet around. And so I check on that. And then I have the gun held at a high position.
Okay.
I have a alarm set on my iPhone, on my smartphone, to ring 30 seconds before legal light and then legal light.
Gotcha.
Because especially for any kind of duck hunting, if you're looking at your phone to see what time it is and you look away, you've already killed the visual purple in your eyes, and you're not going to see anywhere near as good.
Yeah.
So I always, same with deer hunting, I always set I set a little cricket alarm at the end of shooting light. So I'm never having to look at my watch. What time is it? Because it messes up your vision.
Yeah.
And so, I try to get that muzzle pointed as soon as I hear any ducks whistling in the direction where they're coming from, and just being cognizant of shooting them as soon as I get a shot before those first ones drop below the tree line. And that's just for the first 20 minutes or so. That's critical.
Gotcha. I'm going to quote from another story of yours here. I had a good time revisiting some classic Eddie Nickens stories about wood ducks. Wood ducks arrive by twos and threes and the occasional half dozen, and when they come in twisting and turning, screaming and squealing, wild eyes with those blood-red retinas like they're just off an all-night Four Loko bender. Okay. Let's back up. Do you remember writing that line about the Four Loko bender?
I do remember writing that line.
When you write a line that good, I'd like to think you pat yourself on the back like, yeah, that's pretty good.
I pat myself on the back and remembered my Four Loko bender, that inspired that line, which is actually on a Total Outdoorsman film shoot. So from a writing perspective, Colin, I mean, look, it's a performance art.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's I'm not complaining, but it's lonely, it's solitary. And when you turn a phrase, I mean, I've been doing this a long time, but there are still moments when I push back from the desk and pound the wood. And if I had somebody around here to chest bump, I'd chest bump, because I knew, damn right, I caught that one. There's not many people who could have caught that one. Yeah, I still feel that way.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to find new ways to describe things and to bring originality to a piece, especially for a magazine as old as the one we work for. But yeah,
Four Loko opens up so many possibilities. So
can you even get Four Loko anymore? I don't know.
I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not too. But when you've got these birds just going crazy and they're here before you know it, like, what sort of advice would you give to keep your cool and take good shots?
When those wood ducks are coming in so fast and so hot, I swear I am not going to make this up. I stand there, and I feel like little angel Phil Borgelli is standing on my shoulder going, pick a bird, just pick one bird. And I just want to just smack him into the water, because I have the hardest time, picking a bird. We all do. But that's the only way to go about it. Yeah, I mean, it's like shooting into a flock of teal. I mean, how can 3 guys shoot into 60 teal and drop 2?
Right.
But it happens. But I shoot pretty early. When it's low light, they're always closer than you think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the first open shot I get, I'm taking.
Gotcha.
Because they're always closer than you think that time of day.
How long does a wood duck hunt typically last for you?
Well, the limit is 3. And so, I mean, it can take 45 seconds or it can take 24 hours. You know, I don't like it when it's done and over too quickly. I mean, there's kind of a thrill, you know.
Yeah.
But I'd rather it last. I do try to pick out drakes just because it's more fun. They can be a little bigger, you know.
Yeah.
And I like to eat them. So, and it's a lot of work getting into some of these places. And I'm going to stick around. You know, people thinking in my neck of the swamp in North Carolina, it's nothing but wood ducks. But I mean, we get mallards, we get black, we get everything. You know,
cool.
You never know what's going to come in.
Yeah.
But it can be over, you know, pretty quickly. But that's why God made grits and biscuits, brother.
Is there any species of waterfowl prettier than a drake wood duck?
There are some that are gaudier, but not any prettier, not any more just striking.
Yeah.
You know, that red eye and those lemon feathers, you know, but it's not, I mean, some European ducks, I mean, they just look like they just kind of rolled around in a paint can, you know, they got all kinds of colors, but this one just looks, every brush stroke seems to have been purposeful with this animal. And why I can't tell you.
Yeah. Last one for you. What do you love most about this season?
This season coming up?
Yeah, the wood duck season.
Oh, the wood duck season. What do I love most about it? You know, a lot of these places that I hunt, they're not far from home. And I live in a pretty big city. Yeah, and in 50 minutes, 60 minutes, and I could just be in the middle of nowhere. I'm in some little cypress seat that you just feel like time forgot.
Yeah.
And I love being able to dip your pen in that kind of ink and still be home in 3 hours if you need to be. I mean, I love the long trips, and I do plenty of that. And maybe it's sort of back to that familiarity thing. You know, I mean, the wood duck, I mean, it's just always it's always been there for me.
Yeah.
I guess they've always been there for me, and they call me into the woods year round, and I mean, if I just shoot one or two or none, well, none, I still like to shoot. I ain't no pisser. I don't shoot any. But they're just a very giving animal.
Yeah.
How's that? I think they're a very giving animal.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Well, they've given us Field and Stream readers a lot of good stories thanks to you. So, yeah. Well, man, thanks for joining us on the show. I have a feeling that we'll be hearing from you on future episodes and possibly even once again on this episode. But it was fun having a new excuse to chat with you.
Oh, man. Thrilled to death. Thanks so much, Colin.
Yeah. Okay, so whenever Field and Stream publishes a new story, whether it's a recount of a record-breaking trout or another scheming politician trying to take away your public lands, chances are it has Travis Hall's fingerprints on it. Travis is our associate editor, and he handles all the news coverage for Field and Stream. And in Bullet Points, our news segment on the Field and Stream podcast, Travis and I are going to talk through some of the wildest, both literally and figuratively, stories in the news. Travis, good to have you on the podcast, man. How you doing?
Thanks, Colin. Awesome to be here with you. Doing pretty good.
Good. So we've got a few stories that you've selected that we're going to talk through. The first one, the biggest one, this would be like the page one story of the three. I don't know. Did I just date myself by saying page one? Do you know what that is? When was the last time you held a newspaper, Travis?
Oh, actually in my small town here in Montana, we have a pretty active local newspaper that still comes out in print. So
I like to hear that. Journalism is not dead, and it's good to hear that you're supporting local newspapers. I'm not surprised, though. But anyway, this story is about the Roadless Rule. So you want to quickly set this story up from us, and then we can kind of talk through the bullet points here?
Yeah, definitely. So this rule, this Roadless Rule goes back to 2001, and it applies to the United States Forest Service, which manages close to 190 million acres of land across the country, I think.
Yeah.
So, what this rule does is it at its most basic level, it prohibits road building and commercial scale logging on about 58 million acres of Forest Service land across the country.
Gotcha.
And that's all over the country.
And we should point out here, because this is something like, I think, an area of confusion for a lot of people when you hear something called the Roadless Law. It doesn't prohibit all vehicles or it's from this. Like, can you kind of contextualize that a bit more so people have a better understanding?
Yeah, definitely. That's an important distinction to make. So it doesn't prohibit motorized access on these lands, and there actually are existing roads and motorized trails on a lot of these lands that were put in place before this 2001 rule went into effect. So yeah, it's definitely accurate to say that it doesn't prohibit motorized access in these areas.
But what it does, provide for and protect are, as you said, millions and millions and millions of public land on which are some of the best hunting and fishing in the country.
Right, definitely. Yeah, that's one of the things that you hear most frequently when groups like Trout Unlimited, backcountry hunters and anglers talk about this rule, is that it is the best remaining hunting and fishing habitat on public land in America today, and it's because of the lack of road building and commercial timber harvest.
And yet it's at the crosshairs of yet another chapter in the ongoing saga of these damn politicians trying to take away public lands. What the hell, man? Why do they keep doing this to us?
Yeah, that's a $1 million question, right? Hard one to nail down.
Yeah, I put you on the spot with that one. But okay, so let's fast forward to this past June. Brooke Rollins, the head of the Trump admin's USDA. I don't know, what did she do? She spoke up on this, and it caught the attention of a lot of people in the conservation and the outdoor world.
Yeah, exactly. So back in June, she made an announcement that she was going to outright just revoke this rule altogether. And that's all it was at the time, was just kind of an announcement. And then it wasn't until late August that they opened up a pretty short public comment period for people to kind of respond to their plans to do
and
this.
Her reasoning, in her own words, was that it was overly restrictive and quote absurd.
Right.
That's why she wanted to revoke it. Any idea on like what she meant by overly restricted, is restrictive and absurd on that?
Yeah, so if you dig a little deeper into the press release they put out at the time, she says it's overly restrictive in terms of commercial logging, because it restricts commercial logging and new road building, and she also called it outdated.
Yeah,
and it dates back to 2001. but it is also
Not
had
that
some
long ago.
reforms of right. Yeah. And it's had, some reforms over the years as well. So um,
I'll promise on this episode and in future episodes, I'll do my best not to ask you to speculate because that's not your job. You're a reporter, but like, it seems like maybe there's some desire to develop on these public lands and make some money off them. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I mean, and lifting the roadless rule protections would allow them to do that. And specifically, you have places like the Tongass National Forest in Southeast Alaska that
Mhm.
would be, if I'm speculating, in the crosshairs.
Yeah.
If the roadless rule were revoked, just because of the the value of the timber found
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and a lot of other places too.
Yeah.
But,
What was the reaction to this announcement?
I'd say the outcry has been pretty pronounced from
Yeah.
hunters and anglers in particular, and that's across the board. Environmental groups are really up in arms too, but hunters and anglers, conservation groups have been making a lot of noise about this pretty much since June. And I mean, there were even rumblings before Brooke Rollins made her announcement in June that
Yeah.
this was coming, and people have been gearing up. Specifically, Trout Unlimited, they've really been making the most noise in our space, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned that the comment period was super short. I think it was like 21 days. Can you give us a sense of how many people voiced their anger and opinions on this?
Yeah. So there's some conflicting info on this, but the safest number that I can see is at least 200,000 people commented on this in that, like you said, super unusually short window of 21
Yeah.
days.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that comment period since closed. We're recording this in late September. It closed as of just a few days ago. But so obviously this is a developing story. We'll see what comes of it. But in the meantime, with the comment period closed, like, what can people do to stay on top of this?
Yeah, I would say the best thing you can do is just really educate yourself about this issue and the roadless rule. I mean, there's so many nuances that come into play when trying to understand this rule and why it's important. But we've done some good reporting on that dates all the way back to July. We had one of our contributors, Katie Hill, interview the CEO of Trout Unlimited, Chris Wood, who he actually worked for the Forest Service at the time and was instrumental in getting these protections put in place. So I would suggest starting there, reading that article to kind of understand, why it's important.
Yeah, and we can put links to that story in the show notes on the podcast. But so never a dull moment when it comes to conservation and public lands, it seems these days, right?
No.
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay.
It's all gas all the time. It has conservation issues lately.
Yeah. Okay. Transitioning to Fuddville. Where a couple of Michigan boys traveled to Montana and got themselves into a whole heap of trouble. So set the stage for this one.
Yeah. So what we have here, a couple of non-resident hunters came to Montana. This was last year when this occurred, actually. And they killed what looked like you could call it a trophy bull elk with a rifle during archery season, right? While trespassing on private land. Yeah,
Strike two.
Right, exactly. So yeah, some pretty egregious violations there.
Yeah, and you mentioned this happened last year, but it wasn't until recently, I think last month, when the state issued a warrant for the arrest of these two.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And that's when they put out a press release too with some information about the guys.
Yeah, and I mean, these guys just a couple screws loose, I would say, or just I don't know, I don't want to ask you to speculate it yet again, but it's like, what were they thinking, man? Because not only did they, you know, use a rifle during archery season, they trespassed, but they also, all they took was the head. They left, the meat of this animal out to rot. So, they're in violation of wanton waste. But it's like, man, what? And they took a photo of it. Like they took
Right.
a grip and grin photo. So it's like, why do people think that they can get away with this? And why are people driven to do such awful things?
Right. Yeah, it's really hard to kind of wrap your head around.
Yeah, I know. I asked you a lot there, but it really it you don't know whether to feel angry or confused that why someone would even attempt something like this. But man, it's really really despicable. But I guess one bright side to this is that these guys got caught and are likely to face very steep and consequential but deserved punishments. You want to run through what they could be on the hook for here?
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like $60,000 in fines and restitution is what they'll be facing here, and maybe more importantly, they'll also have their hunting license, trapping privileges revoked in all 50 states across the country, thanks to the Wildlife Violators Compact Agreement that exists between states. So,
well, they deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was such an egregious crime, and like you said, just hard to even wrap your head around why someone would do that, but let alone so brazenly with taking the photos and leaving the meat to waste there. But thankfully they got caught.
Yeah. And how were they caught? Because that's another interesting part of the story too.
Yeah, so like so many poaching cases these days, it was a tip from a tip from hunters that brought these
tip
guys
from real hunters, not poachers.
Real hunters, hunters,
the kind of guys who
distinction.
Give our sport a good name, unlike these two assholes.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, when these stories happen, you always hate it because it's a beautiful animal that went to waste. It's a couple guys who give our sport a bad name, but like I said, on the bright side, these jerks are getting what they deserve, and it's cool to see that hunters played a role in catching these guys.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully, an example is made of this, and more people are encouraged to turn in stuff like this when they see it out in the field.
Yeah. All right. So our final story, not really a hunting story, just more of like a really cool wildlife science story that involves wolves and elk. Why don't you set the stage here?
Yeah, totally. So this is a study that was done by UC Berkeley in conjunction with Wyoming Game and Fish. And they were tracking, I think, close to 100 elk and like 19 wolves in the Absaroka mountain range, which is immediately east of Yellowstone National Park. And what they observed were these wolves, the adult wolves carrying like newly born, immobile pups up to 12 miles to follow these migrating elk herds.
Carrying them in their mouths, we should say.
Right.
Yeah.
In their mouths, yeah.
Across
some really steep and rugged and crazy terrain.
All in the, I guess to just so they can, stay closer to the elk and, ultimately prey on them. But
right.
Really, really interesting because, correct me if I'm wrong, but prior to this, it was assumed that elk were kind of safe in the spring to migrate, because the thinking was that the wolves, when they had these immobile pups, they were kind of stuck in place because they had to take care of their young. But now this study suggests that we can still come after you and follow you too.
Right. Yeah, they're not the elk aren't necessarily safe in the spring when these wolves are caring for those super vulnerable young. And like you said, scientists had assumed before that they were kind of anchored to those den sites when the pups are that small. But they can just take off with them in their mouths and follow the food source wherever they need to go.
Yeah, yeah. Just one more thing to admire about wolves, and just another example of why, man, it's not easy being an elk, is it?
No, no, definitely not. Yeah, you don't get a lot. You don't get any reprieve from the
Yeah.
predators or the elements. So
No, you don't.
yeah,
Cool. Well, Travis, thanks, man, for walking us through these stories. Thanks for all the work you're doing for the site and on our social channels. And I know you will keep on reporting, and we'll chat up with you next time for the next episode to go through more wild news stories in the fishing and hunting world.
heck yeah, will do, Colin. Thanks for having me on. It was good talking to you.
You too, man. Welcome to How I Hunt, a segment where we'll chat with prominent outdoors folks and ask them about, well, how they hunt, as well as what they like to hunt, where they like to hunt, and most interestingly, at least to me, why they hunt and what hunting means to them. Our guest this week is a noted photographer, filmmaker, conservationist, and host of Field and Stream's Legend of the Wild podcast, Sam Soholt. Sam, it's good to have you on the Field and Stream podcast.
It's good to be on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you got it. Now, I wanted to have you on this episode for a couple reasons. One, you're an interesting guide. I wanted to pick your brain on how you hunt. But two, as someone who's kind of brand new to this podcast hosting gig, I was hoping I could glean some tips from you. So let's start there. The Legends of the Wild show has been awesome so far. I've heard a lot of great feedback from folks I know. I personally really enjoyed listening to it, and I'm just curious to hear from you. How's the experience been hosting it for you so far?
It's been a ton of fun. I mean, the cool thing about it is I have been a co-host of a podcast. We do a turkey hunting podcast called Roost. And then I have been a guest on so many of them, like over the years. And so I didn't really know how I would flow into the role of like actual host, but I have been having a ton of fun with it and just getting to talk to really cool people. And I'm glad that there's been good feedback. And obviously,
Yeah.
We're going to continue to listen to people who have not so good feedback, because we do want to build this up into something where there is something anybody who spends time in the woods or on the water has something to listen to.
Yeah.
But I've loved being the host of it. It's been a great time.
Yeah, well, you could have fooled me that you've been doing this for longer than you have, because even from the first episode, just a total natural as the host of the show. And, it's been cool because you've had so many different guests. I mean, they're all, rooted in the outdoors, but they do different things. They have different passion projects. But at the end of the day, I think one thing that's coming through for all of them are just great storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, and that's I've been very lucky in my career to get to meet a lot of people and make connections. So even, people that we've had on that I didn't know personally, we'd have friends of friends. And so it's just the flow of conversation and kind of being able to pull some stories out of them is easier than it might be if you're walking in with a total stranger. So it's been cool.
Totally. Now, I won't ask you to pick your favorite guest or conversation, but is there one of these stories or anecdotes or answers that a guest shared that's really stood out to you and kind of stuck with you?
Donnie, Vincent, and I, we talked a lot about, I asked him a question about what's the closest he's ever known that he's been to dying.
Yeah.
And he gave 3 stories. And it was fun to listen to those simply because I've been behind the camera on a lot of types of those hunts.
Yeah.
And I've been in those situations where I'm the one watching the host or the host of the show or whatever, almost die. And so I felt like I really liked that part, because there's you spend enough time outdoors, there's just lots of close calls with, crazy stuff.
Yeah. That was a really gripping and entertaining episode. The detail that he shares about the toenails towards the end. I don't think I'm ever going to forget that. And actually, as soon as I listened to that episode, I went on YouTube and found the video that he was talking about, the toque, the Dulcer punt, and watched that. And I was relieved. No spoiler learning. I was relieved that the toenails did not make an appearance in that video, in that film.
Yeah. And I would imagine that in the moment, he's like, I am not filming or taking photos of this. I'm just worried about my feet.
Yeah. But it was an awesome episode. Another answer that stuck out to me from listening to your shows, obviously the fight for public lands is it's an ongoing struggle, and it's something we're, always just going to have to, be mindful of and be proactive about. But, when you were talking to Randy Newberg about that, and he was kind of talking about his own childhood, and it was kind of like why this stuff matters so much to him, and hearing him say, like, he didn't grow up rich. Like, if it weren't for public lands growing up, he never would have been able to hunt. And like, I thought that was just a really powerful and personal answer, and one that's stuck with me. And yeah, it was really, really cool.
Yeah, and I think that's why Randy is so relatable. Just because from where he came from to what he's doing now, it's always been something that if somebody's watching his show or listening to him, you always feel like, oh, I could go do that too.
Yeah.
It's never this. I mean, he does big aspirational hunts, but even those, it's like, oh, well, he, drove there on his own and, hunted the road system for moose or whatever.
Yeah.
And he just does all sorts of cool stuff that's like making it all feel way more accessible to everybody.
Yeah. Any advice for me as I begin this new content creating adventure?
If I come up with anything good, I'll let you know. But right now, I'm just trying to find my own flow.
All right. Well, cool. Well, let's get into the How I Hunt interview. Promise I don't have any hard hitting gotcha questions here. We'll keep this fun. But Sam, can you tell me your earliest hunting memory?
Yeah. So I think my earliest, like, there's things that I remember where there's, decoys in the garage and stuff like that. But I think my earliest like actual hunting memory is my dad was training our English Shepherd that we had. He had got a upland dog and he had bought some crated pheasants. And I remember going out into like, a CRP field. And I remember sitting on the tailgate of his Ford Bronco while he was getting the pheasants prepped to train this dog. And that I remember having a little, it was a little shotgun, but it actually used caps. And so I remember walking with him and then having the dog point and, the bird jumping up and my dad shooting at me, pulling up this little shotgun, pretending I was, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years old. So I think that's my first like vivid memory of being in the field.
Yeah. And it sounds like you grew up in a family where the outdoors played a big role. Like it's just, I assume it's been something that's always been a part of your life.
Yeah. The funny thing is like my dad just loved hunting. He used to be he was an archery hunter for a long time, had kids, became upland duck hunter so we could all be closer. But as we got older, all of us were interested in it. And my mom would be like, could you just leave the kids home for one weekend? Like, most most time it's like, hey, take the kids, like, and he would take us any chance like that he could. We were out doing something in the woods. And so it got to be a point where my mom was like missing us because we weren't around home at all.
Yeah. How did you get into conservation?
So that kind of stemmed from, I started in photography and then I had I put a bunch of goals for myself in the photo world. So like cover photos, shooting for certain clients and brands, kind of just building this network of like a pipeline of jobs. Started looking for like, okay, what's the next big project? Well, 2016 is when I was thinking about all this, and there was a giant chance that a bunch of public lands were going to get transferred to the States or sold off, and started to do a lot more research about that. And at the same time, I had kind of had this idea for building out a school bus into a hunting shack, and it just all kind of collided at once. And the idea to use this big vehicle as a billboard to raise awareness about it, and get to go travel around the country and do cool stuff and shoot photos and videos and whatever, kind of just all hit at the same time. And then so that was summer of 2017. I spent the entire summer building out the school bus, and then since then have just been kind of waving that public land flag and following after people like Randy Newberg and Jason Matzinger and Callahan, all these really big names who have, kind of came before me, but got to, kind of fight alongside them. So that's kind of where that all stemmed from.
Awesome. I mean, I remember when I first saw the school bus and the idea behind it, and just thinking, I was like, that is really creative. That is really cool. And here's someone who's like making conservation fun, like, because it can be I've read some of the old conservation columns in Field and Stream, and it can be a little tough to get through at times, but like it's still very important. And I think like from your t-shirts to the you know, duck ruck and you know, and the bus, of course, like you've been so great at, you know, just making conservation something that's engaging and fun and cool. And when you were putting that bus together, like did you ever imagine it would become as big as it is, or quite frankly, like it's an icon of you know, the public land fight in this country?
Yeah, you know, I didn't. You know, I thought people would like it because, you know, like everyone can kind of relate to that school bus like thing. Like everyone rode the bus at some point, and but I did not expect it to blow up as much as it did. You know, and had very incredible people that like helped kind of like move it along. You know, Outdoor Life came along and wrote an article about it and had me, you know, send in photos or whatever. So that really helped kind of put it on the map, and did a series through that and RMEF, and just kind of, you know, it was a pretty amazing. People kind of like heard about the project and then were willing to jump on board. So it was cool.
That's very cool. Let's shift gears to photography and film for a little bit. Can you tell me, like, what are some of the elements that you look for when you're taking a photograph in the wild, or what are the kind of things that you're looking to capture, or the stories you try to tell through your photography?
Yeah, so I've always liked photography work because I'm constantly attempting to tell a story with a single image. You know, even though a lot of times, you know, now with social media, you're posting a carousel or a series of story, you know, images on a story or whatever. There's a lot of times when you're shooting a photo, you know, whether it's for a brand or for yourself, you're trying to like remember that moment, or be able to have somebody see that and say, oh, I know exactly what's going on in this photo. Like they can put themselves in that photo. So when I'm trying to set up a shot or trying to like capture like a certain moment on a hunt or whatever it might be, that's always in the back of my mind. It's like, okay, is this photo going to be able to like tell the story of like what's actually happening? Can somebody who sees this photo go, oh, they're, you know, duck hunting on the prairie and like the skies are dark and gray, you know, it's just like it's muddy, like whatever the scene might be. I just want people to be able to put themselves right there.
Yeah, totally. And I think you've done that many times with your photography. It's really, really stunning. Is there one image that comes to mind where you really feel like you executed on that, or one? Do you have like a personal favorite?
Yeah, so it's not even in the hunting space. My sister and I took a month-long trip to Patagonia, and we were in El Chalten, and we were hiking to Mount Fitzroy. So it's this, you know, very famous mountain in Chile, and we were there in the fall, and so all of the bushes and foliage was fall colors, and it had snowed like an inch the night before we started this hike up to the mountain. And my sister was in front of me, and she had a maroon pack on, so it kind of like fit the scene of the fall colors and whatever. And we were walking through this like little narrow corridor of bushes, and I had a really wide angle lens on, and I held the camera up above my head and shot kind of a downward angle, but framed right in the middle. So like the leading lines that run you there is Mount Fitzroy, and then you have the fall foliage and the rest of the mountains, and then you have her with this maroon pack on, like kind of like, I don't know, something about that photo has always been like, yep, that was one that I'm very proud of that one.
Oh man, I can picture it just hearing you describe it. That sounds really amazing. Can you tell the story about how you got your first video camera? Because we've chatted about this one before, and it's a fun background.
Yeah. So when we were all young kids, my parents made a deal with all three of us that if we didn't drink till we were 21, you can pick out a shotgun. And so I'm the middle child. So my older brother, Josh, made it to 21, didn't drink, went and got a Beretta AL391 Technics edition, like, so beautiful wood stock, you know, semi-auto shotgun. I think at the time it was like $1,600 or something like that. And I remember my dad saying, easiest check I've ever written. Like, you know, so simple. I'd never had to worry about it. So I'm 4 years behind my brother. So as I'm coming through, I'm, you know, obviously looking at shotguns and trying to figure this out. But I had this really strong passion to like get into videography more and create films and do this stuff. Well, I asked my dad, I was like, well, could I get a video camera instead of a shotgun? And he thought I was insane. He's like, why would you ever do that? And so ended up getting, I split one with him. So the camera was at the time was like $3,500 or $3,600 or whatever it was. And so he paid for half, I paid for half, and I got a Canon XH-A1S. It was a tape, 60-minute HD tape. And then obviously I had no idea how to use it. So it wasn't until like 3 years later that I was actually learned how to, film and edit and do all that stuff. But yeah, that was like the first, like my first professional video camera was just, staying sober until I turned of legal age.
Yeah. And I mean, look where it got you. It led to a pretty cool and successful career. Do you still have that camera?
No, I moved to Montana, and then funny story is I met a guy randomly in a coffee shop, and I told him I was trying to sell it, and he's like, oh, I posted at the film school at Montana State. And so I posted at the film school, sold the camera like 2 days later, helped me pay for rent because I was broke as a joke. But that guy that I had met, his name's Ian. He was a producer for a hunting show, and he hired me for a gig that took me to Alaska. And then that led to filming for Coast Guard Alaska. It's like, so that camera really like
unbelievable. Wow.
Was the launch point. Yeah.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
Sam, what do public lands mean to you?
I mean, at this point, it's everything. It's been, my whole career. It's where I spend time recreating and creating content and fighting for. And so, obviously public lands are kind of fabric of our country, right? It's woven into it, but I feel like public lands have been just kind of like woven into me.
Yeah.
I just, I don't know what I'd do without them.
Yeah. What's your favorite animal to hunt?
This is a tough one, and I feel like my answer changes. Whitetails are definitely like based on proximity to where I live. Whitetails have become like what I grind for the most every year. But man, when I'm in a duck blind and there's a group of mallards dropping in, like I feel like I should be duck hunting every day.
Yeah.
And when I'm spot and stock mule deer hunting, I feel like I should be doing that every day. But yeah, I mean, whitetails have been my main focus for a while now.
Gotcha. Piggybacking off your conversation with Donnie Vincent, what is the wildest adventure you've ever taken?
It was filming a sheep hunt. I filmed one for a guy named Steve West. So Steve's Outdoor Adventures was the TV show, and like literally everything that went wrong, that could have gone wrong, went wrong.
Yeah.
We decided to add some spice to this content piece where we were going to take a jet boat for a client that they were working with and film running up the Stikine River up to camp. And we got on the water late. And so, it was a 100-mile run up the river. And we ran the last hour after dark through rapids and all sorts of stuff, like super dangerous. The next morning, the outfitter rolled his four-wheeler off a little, like a 15-foot cliff down to the river and almost killed himself. We were the main airplane was broken, so they had hired a float plane. And so instead of how they had told us the hunt was going to go, we ended up getting just dropped in and hiked 120 miles over 12 days. And I was carrying like 80 pounds on my back. And I had 3 cameras. I had 2 video cameras and a DSLR, a tripod, and batteries. I lost 18 pounds. We had a grizzly charge run towards 2 of the guys that were going to pick up a food drop. We got weathered in. We ran out of food. It was like, we didn't kill a sheep. And I kept telling, when we got back, I told people, I think all of the luck that would have gone into actually punching a tag on a sheep went into just not having anybody get injured.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. But it's amazing, trips like that. I think a lot of people listening to this would be like, why the hell do you do this? Why would you ever want to do that again? And you and Donnie, hit on this pretty well. And it's like, yeah, probably in the moment you have questions, you question your own sanity. But, when you get back a couple weeks, you're like, no, I could do that again.
Yep. I did one thing from that trip though, is anytime I was like, if I ever get hired to do a sheep hunt again, my day rate doubles.
Okay. Smart.
But no, it's that type 2 fun. It's like you need to push yourself through really hard stuff.
Yeah.
And just you always feel better on the other side of it.
Yeah.
So yes, it sucks in the moment. You might be wet and hungry and tired, cold, and, like beat up and blisters and the whole thing.
Yeah.
But then like all those other things that are in your daily life seem so much more mundane when you get back home.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. When we last spoke, I think this was about a year ago. I think I have this right. You and your wife had just had your first kid. Is that about right?
Yeah.
How's
Yep.
parenthood been going for you?
Parenthood has been great. We have been very lucky. She's 1 year old now. Her name's Oakley. She has been very easy on us. She's been great sleeper, so parenthood has been a trip, but it's been great.
Awesome. Have you, what's your favorite moment that you've spent outside with Oakley?
It wasn't too long ago. I probably hiked her too far, but we were out hanging cameras together. Got one of those little packs I can throw her in, and we just like bopped around for most of the day. I think my wife was like, "What are you doing? You got to like bring her back for a nap." I was like, "I don't know." She fell asleep for a little while in the pack.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Well, it's exciting to think about. I've got a little boy. He'll be 3 next month, and
Nice.
I can't wait for the first time we'll go in the river. And I'm thinking next year might try and get after some bluegill with him for the first time. But I think about a lot of the time we have ahead where we can spend outside. My wife really likes to camp and hike, and it's exciting to know that there's a whole world of firsts that we're gonna get to experience with him outside.
Yeah, you get to like go and relive all of those experiences like through their eyes.
Yeah,
Totally. I can't. Yeah, I'm excited.
Couple more for you, Sam. What is your favorite way to end a day of hunting?
I think most of the time it's like hanging out back at camp. My favorite is like wall tent, wood stove, just like in a camp chair with that heat radiating off a wood stove.
Yeah.
Maybe a bourbon or not. Like I don't drink all that much when I'm hunting, but like every once in a while, like a nice little glass of bourbon with that wood stove heat is pretty solid.
Yeah. Good place to tell stories too. Setting like
That's right.
And last, how would you like to be remembered, Sam?
I think just as somebody who did their best to leave it better than they had it.
Yeah. Well, I think you're doing a pretty good job of following through on that with all the work you do. So, man, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast. People can hear you, of course, on the Legends of the Wild podcast, but where else can folks find you?
Just Instagram at Sam Soholt or at Public Land Tees, Soholt Brothers YouTube channel. Just pretty easy to find.
Cool. Well, really enjoyed the conversation and excited to hear the next episode of your show. And we'll catch up soon, man.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
Now it's time for Cheers and Jeers, the point in the show where we'll share feedback, the good, the bad, and the ugly from members of the Field and Stream community. We'll start with some feedback we've gotten from Legends of the Wild, our podcast with the one and only Sam Soholt. Unhappy Fuji customer says, bummed that Field and Stream is so focused on the field and not the stream. Unhappy Fuji customer, I'll give you my word that the Field and Stream podcast will do its best to adhere by FCC standards and give equal time to the field and the stream. McClaw 19, Sam's interview with Olcal, aka Ryan Callahan, was on the money and truly deep introspective of the times we're living in. Thanks for listening. And Girl Dragon Tattoo writes, I disagree with hunting. I love the wilderness and adventure and have lived most of my life in the wilderness. Hunting is wrong. Correction, you're wrong. Next, we'll share some feedback we've gotten from the Field and Stream Journal. Gary Shore writes, I just want to say thank you for returning to the print edition. As a 62-year-old deer hunter and muskie fisherman, I have sorely missed the print edition to have and to hold, and yes, to look at in the bathroom. Keep up the great work for another 100 years or so. And John D. writes, from the time I first learned to read, I have been a great fan of Field and Stream. I've met many of my best friends fishing the waters that were mentioned in the magazine. They became great lifelong friends who were also driven by the love of the outdoors. Many came from fishing the Madison. Some became great writers. others were just fanatics like me. Through your magazine, I lived in a world where you could lose yourself in the best that this world has to offer. I just want to say thank you. Well, fellas, you're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome. Moving on to some of our social media channels. On Instagram, we recently teased a story about Hal Blood, a legendary deer hunter and tracker from Maine. Folks loved this story, and they were especially enamored by photos of the pickup truck that Hal drives, which is a beat-up old Ram Charger. Wicked North Gear says, had me at Ram Charger. Truck Rodeo, that Ram Charger. Trevor.Meredith, I miss my dad's old Ram Charger. Seals.Hank, can't beat a Ram Charger. Patrick Zim, awesome Ram Charger. PRM9156, any man that's still rocking a Ram Charger is definitely someone that is full of knowledge. And Dan Stenger 97 _, I see a Ram Charger, I click like. Well, all of you, I like everything that you had to say. Lastly, on our newsletters, we've been getting a lot of great feedback from the FNS community since we've upgraded these newsletters. Here's a note in response to a takedown on Euro nymphing that yours truly wrote in our fishing newsletter, The Strike Zone. Courtney Davis writes, thank you for finally stating what many of us on the river think about this ridiculous method of fishing. I'm not a dry fly purist, and I enjoy virtually all methods of solving the challenges of getting trout to take a hook covered with feather and fur. But I cannot abide by the Euro nymphing ethos. I had the exact reaction that you did when I first gave it a try. Boring fishing that lacks any imagination and turns it into a process akin to working on an assembly line. Do I like catching a lot of fish? Absolutely. Are the memorable times that the magic happens that much sweeter because I was in the right place at the right time with the right fly, making the right presentation? They sure as hell are. And here's a note we got in response to an essay about venison burgers in our deer hunting newsletter, Whitetail 365. Your venison burger tips were expert, perfect, spot on, inspired, because that's exactly how I do it. And I'm an expert. I would add one thing. For the love of all things carnivore, only use 2 spices liberally on a venison burger: salt and pepper. Any of the so-called hamburger spice mixes are blasphemy. That's it for this week's edition of Cheers and Cheers. Thanks for all the feedback, everyone. If you've got a cheer or a jeer that you'd like to submit, you can send it to podcast@fieldandstream.com. All right, so gearing up is an essential and exciting part of every hunting and fishing trip, and in some ways it's when the adventure begins, whether that adventure is a quick sit in a stand before work or a long weekend road trip with your buddies. And in this segment, we're going to cover gear from all eras, from classics to the cutting edge. And today we're going to talk about cellular trail cams with Field & Stream contributor Jace Bauserman. Jace, welcome to the Field & Stream podcast, buddy.
Hey, man, thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to it. Been using a lot of these cell cams this year and a lot in years past, and just seeing the progression of technology within these cameras is that's always something fun to see the development of any product over time.
Yeah, well, based on all the heads on the wall behind you, I would say that the trail cams they've been helping you out.
Yeah, I would say sometimes they definitely play a role. Here in Colorado, sadly, unfortunately, I don't agree with it, but every state has different, some have no camera laws, but in Colorado, I have to remove any cell cameras 48 hours before I start hunting. Now, that's not before the start of the season, but that's before I physically go in and say, okay, I'm going in. So our deer season starts October 1st here for whitetail. And so I am actually going to go in later this afternoon, and I'm going to pull everything. It's early. I like to make sure that I get everything out so there's no questions, that sort of thing. But but then all I do is I just replace those cellulars with a top model digital. And
Gotcha.
I literally lose nothing, so it's really handy.
Cool. Well, actually, before we get into trail cams real quick, I want to talk about your hunting season so far. We're recording this in late September, and
Yeah.
you have already had a banner year. You've been sending us, some of the editors on staff, photos of, you've gotten a great pronghorn, you got a nice deer. I understand you got a nice elk too. How's, you got to be feeling pretty high on life right now.
Well, it's one of those blessed Septembers that you just, you work hard all year, you train, you do all the stuff with your gear and you prepare. And then, it's then once hunting season gets there, it's just time to go to work. And so we've been really, really fortunate. I killed a really nice pronghorn, with my bow, and then I got to go to Wyoming to a really cool place. I've really wanted to hunt whitetails in September, and the goal was a velvet buck. That was the goal. But when that buck walked in, like, he'd been stripped for at least we figure about a week, and it didn't matter. It was a 150 plus inch deer in Wyoming, in that part of Wyoming. I wasn't about to let him walk, and then and then 4 days later, lo and behold, I killed a really cool, unique bull. He's actually a 7x3. He had some damage to his pedicles. So that's the side that I saw coming through, was just that gnarly, funky side. And anything that has some weirdness to it, I'm usually all about that. So no, it's been a great September. My son killed his first bow bull like 5 days after that. So yeah, it's just been one of those things that we're going to try to keep the train on the tracks and keep rolling.
Yeah. Well, you can't beat fall. Now with trail cameras, if you don't mind, I'd like to go back in time, because one of the things I really enjoyed about the test you wrote for fieldandstream.com on the best cellular trail cams of 2025 is you really, give a sense for how far trail cameras have come in technology. And I'd like to hear you talk about the first trail cameras you ever used, just to give our audience a sense of like what the originals were like.
Right. So like I remember like when trail cameras started to hit, and of course this is way pre-cellular and even pre-digital. So I don't even remember the brand, but I remember I got it from Cabela's. And I'd seen some advertising done on this thing, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're going to tell me that this little box, well, it wasn't little, but this box that I'm going to put in the woods is going to be able to watch the game 24/7, 365, and the whole 9 yards. So I got really amped up and really excited about it. And these, of course, were film style trail cameras. And I'll never forget, like, the first time I put batteries in it and I set the film just like you would in an old shoot and wind camera, and I push this button and the camera literally goes, there's like this long delay and then it flips. And I'm like, oh, well, surely it's not, whatever. Yeah. So I remember going and I left it out for like 3 weeks, and I went back and, there's a 24 film roll. And it was full. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have so much. I run down to Walmart. I wait for the 1 hour photo, and I've got like weeds, a coyote, and one doe staring at me that looks like her eyes are these lights above me.
Yeah.
Because the strobe of the flash was like something you'd see in Vegas, right? It was just like, boom. It freaked her out. So when I was kind of like, okay, I still see some value in this. I still see where it can help me, but gosh, I'm going to have to try to modify like where I'm sitting it, and started to learn about angles and which way to face them depending on the sun and weeds and how wind plays into affecting these things. And then you just saw this progression of, because everybody's having the same experience, and savvy manufacturers are like, I got to make a change here. So that's how it started for me. I feel like I was kind of in on the ground. I mean, I was young, but I was like, these were new.
Yeah. I mean, just that detail about you taking a roll of film to Walmart to have it developed. I mean, there's so many people, young folks out there who they don't even know what we're talking about. But that's amazing.
Film alone.
Yeah. So fast forward to the trail cams of today, specifically cellular trail cams. Does it blow your mind by how far the technology has come?
I think it's even beyond mind blowing. And this year was just flat out boggling. I mean, like truly, I mean, when you can sit here right now
Yeah.
And a deer walks by your camera, it's
Mhm.
going to send you a message, and you're going to see that deer, whether you have, depending on the camera. Some cameras deliver a thumbnail. Browning's that I tested this year, the live stream, it delivers an actual HD photo, which I really appreciated. I mean, it comes through full HD, ready to go. Some of them
Mhm.
have photo plus video, but then you got to request the HD photo or the video, and then the camera's got to trigger again. They're all different, but the technology of just being able to really have what I talked about in the start, that 24/7, 365, what's going on, but now you have it in real time.
Yeah.
And I mean, then you have some of these abilities to, like, I can log into a camera right now and I can go to real time view and I can watch. I have one camera set over a man-made pond. Um, I can watch what's going on in front of that pond for up to 5 minutes in real time. So if I'm walking in to hunt, and we always worry about, like, guys are planting food plot screens, right? They're doing everything. We have to focus on entrance and exit. This takes it even a step farther and goes, okay, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to watch. I'm going to watch. I'm going to watch. I'm going to watch. I mean, I messed with it one day. Of course, I'm not hunting, but I'm just messing around. Like, I'm watching this trail camera as I go in
Yeah.
until I enter into the screen of the camera. And it was just like, kind of like, I mean,
It's amazing you can get any
what's-
work done with all these distractions, because it's, you never know what you're going to be able to find out there.
like that's kind of a drawback to this. When I was in Illinois, I was with my good buddy Levi Morgan, and we were sitting there talking about this. And we're both family men. We've got kids, we've got wives, and as you, because it could be him, right? We could be a hitless buck. It could be him at any moment. It could be this. It could be that. And as soon as those cameras go out, this phone becomes even more of an addiction. So the cool thing is you can set delivery times. So like right now, have mine set to instant because I can't use them during hunting season here anyway. Now, the cameras we have set in Illinois and the cameras I have set on my lease in Oklahoma, starting here in about a week and a half, they'll change from to instant delivery. But like right now, I just have them delivered once a day. So you can set all these parameters. These apps are incredible and they're so easy to use. Like, I mean, I'm not very great with technology, but every app that I used, it's just like, read an instruction and push a button. Read an instruction and push a button. It's that simple.
That's cool. Can you walk me through your testing process for these trail cams?
Yeah, man. I really thought it was important, when you do a field test of any nature, Dave Hurto and I went back and forth. And so I think it's really important that that field test happens in an area where it's actually in the field. Watch some videos. I saw some backyard testing and I did some of that, right? I set out the cones and I walked in front of the cones and did different stuff like that. But I want to see how it performs in the field under any type of condition. And in Southeast Colorado, in summertime, those cameras were exposed to heat of up to 108 degrees Fahrenheit, winds up to 50 miles an hour, hail, just buckets of rain, some real violent conditions. And then, of course, those perfect summer sun-soaked days. It's nice and cool. Everything's good. So I wanted to see, the main primary thing was like, I want to know how many false triggers. I want to see, because I hate sifting through blanks. And those cameras went on a rotation. So they went on a rotation between isolated kill plots, larger ag fields, a three-way trail intersection in tight timber, a river crossing, just all types of different areas to see. In some instances, the camera was very up close to where a deer was going to come. I wanted to see what the reaction was to the flash. In some instances, like the three-way trail intersection, I'm pushing the maximum limit of any of those cameras' range that says, okay, this camera's detection range is tested day or night, capture detection to 80 feet. So I would use HuntStand's line measuring tool and then also a rangefinder and then just some basic math. And I used a camera stake so that I could move that camera to that furthest or closest or wherever I wanted to be in that instance and really see those types of things. And then trigger speed also. So trigger speed was kind of interesting, but I used a combination of things. I used a stopwatch. I'm a big runner and I have those chips. That proved to be a little bit interesting. But the most important thing that was still in the field. Like we had so many predators, we have coyotes, bobcats, different things, or just a deer running. Where that camera's angled and where that animal's captured in the frame, if
Mhm.
it's moving, will tell you a lot about whether that manufacturer's trigger speed is spot on or not. So,
Mhm.
I mean, we went through a lot. I mean, I recorded very live, number of photos. When I switched to video, I pull all my video and photos up here on the big computer in my office, really look at the granular nature of the photos or lack thereof, the blur, all these different things. And then I played with the apps. Anything
Yeah.
the app said it could do, I wanted to see if it truly could do. Like Moultrie says, that you can sort analytically. You can see which stands are having the most buck activity at what times of day, and it was spot on. So like
Gotcha.
those are really unique features within the app. So I'd like to think we really did a comprehensive test.
Totally.
And we put out some really good information on that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's really thorough, and because these things are expensive, and it's a useful service that we're providing to people. Like
Sure.
if you're going to invest this money, like we're going to tell you which one's the best.
Exactly. And I think it's important for people to know too, like, that's why in some of the things that I wrote, like some of these cameras have come a long way. Like
Mhm.
I wouldn't have, there was years ago, where I didn't have great luck with Browning's Defender series and some of the covert models I struggled with, and certain things within certain brands. Those aren't the only two. But what I love to see is the constant progression of manufacturers knowing, because they wouldn't change it if they don't know. If it goes back to that saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But if it is broke, fix it.
Yeah.
And I think that there's been some huge strides in what these cameras can do and how effective. Was
Gotcha.
very pleased with the whole group, really.
Awesome. Let's talk about some of the top performers. The Tactical Reveal Ultra won best overall. Why? I guess why? What impressed you about that camera? What made it stand out?
It's so from a usage standpoint, for me day to day, that camera took the fewest number of false triggers. I mean, and no matter where I moved it, in addition to that, that camera has an adjustable flash. So here's the thing that also really, really bothers me about trail cameras, because I've seen it happen. Do I think that sometimes as hunters we give animals too much credit? I really do. I mean, I'm not saying animals aren't smart. I don't think you get much smarter than a mature buck or those types of things. But I think sometimes we tend to overthink things, and it ends up costing us. I'm a much more aggressive hunter. So one of the things I do realize, though, is once a deer has realized, some deer are movie stars. They don't care. They'll love to get their picture taken.
Yeah.
Where others get that flash and you get this look into your, and it's like, oh, damn. And then
I've seen him again.
You don't see him there in front of that camera. Now you go move that camera 40 degrees down another trail, bam, you got him. All he did, he's recognized that it's there. So being able to switch between a low glow and a no glow style flash, because like in an open food plot, I wanted more of a low glow because I wanted to reach out and capture a little bit more. But in tight timber settings, you don't know. I did not have one single deer.
Wow.
Other than a doe that wanted to come up and lick it, which happens all the time, which is already like, well, she doesn't care. She smelled me on it. She smelled something on it. Those features really impress me, along with the ability, the ease of use of the app. The detection range is crazy. I can't remember off the top of my head what Tacticam brands the detection capture range at, but I have a doe at a measured distance of like way past that. And so as a complete package, it's very easy to conceal. It's got a wide paddle style antenna. It's got a slot for that antenna, which I really appreciate, because like a lot of my areas that I like to go set cameras, I like to go walkabouts. The connectivity was quick. It was really easy. I got in and out of areas fast. Battery life was good. And I like that little slot for that antenna. It's like a compact unit. It was just one of those that it was a no fail, foolproof type of camera that just had a little bit more. the theft technology within it. Oh, and another feature I love about it that made it very special to me is with that camera, I can sit here right now and I can turn the cellular function of that camera off, and I get a photo that timestamps the date, everything that I went from non-cellular to just an active digital camera.
Wow.
I like that feature. And there's cameras, states with cell camera laws. And I think that that's important that somebody, like now I don't have to go take that Tacticam down.
Yeah.
And then replace it with another camera. I just push a button and I get a timestamp and date so that if something comes up where somebody said, well, Jace killed a big buck, but my gosh, he's using those cell cameras. You'd be like, I was, absolutely. But look, this is the day, time I took it off. So, those are some things that just made that camera really stand out to me.
Sweet. And then best value went to the Moultrie Mobile Edge 3. I mean, it's the price speaks for itself. It's $100. I mean, that is a great value. But what else about that camera impressed you?
The app for what it can do. I love all the settings that Moultrie offers. AI technology is something that's coming, that's out there, and it's been in the camera world for a little while. Moultrie's is always spot on. The AI recognition feature within that camera is very good. If it's a doe, it's a doe. If it's a buck, it's a buck. A hog. And you can select different things within that. I like that. I like being able to turn off people in trucks especially when I'm on my private lease, because I should be the only one in there and I don't want to waste battery life or camera or anything of it snapping me when I'm in there working on whatever I'm doing. And in addition to that, I like all the graphs and analytics that camera tracks. I am a big analytic guy when it comes to animals. So I journal everything. I journal and write constantly. This kind of does that for me because it just compiles the analytics. It tells me which stands are getting the most, which cameras are getting the most traffic. I can translate that into which stands I need to be in. And then you can also set it up. This is something that I really love. If I always want, and I do, because sometimes videos are deceiving, especially on trail cameras, I always want a video of every buck. From a spiker, I want the video of the buck. So I can set that camera to send me videos of bucks without having to go in and request them. That camera already knows. I've given it a direction through the Moultrie app that says, when that edge takes a picture of a buck, AI technology says, that's a buck, give that man a video, and I get a video. That's cool. And a this point camera that was right there. Like I don't think people understand how close and how hard this was. And now I have the Edge 3 Pro. So that one came after we did the test. And some of the things that I wasn't quite crazy about with the Edge 3 Pro is a little better. It's a little pricier, but for like you said, it's a no-brainer. I mean, I would fill my deer property with those cameras and have zero worries. Zero worries. I'd probably use them and their cell cameras more than I've used any other brand over the years.
Gotcha.
They're very reliable.
AI is pretty scary in a lot of ways, but there are ways where it's really exciting and useful, and this is one of them. Moments ago you mentioned that I liked how you said that some bucks are movie stars, and will let you take photos of them all day. A cool thing about trail cams is that obviously they're hunting tools, but they do provide some entertainment, and it is neat that they allow you to see the personalities of some of these animals. Wouldn't you say?
It's so fun, man. I submitted this wasn't even a video for a trail camera. I sent one over to Dave when I was in Wyoming, and we later got the trail cam video through a digital camera that the outfitter that I was going with was using, but it's just this little fawn in this pond, and it's just playing.
Yeah.
It was so cool. Well, I did that through my phone, but then they also have the footage because they set all of their standard digital cameras to just record video. Because the great thing about video, and the great thing like what you're saying, is when you can go back and set up, whether you want to set your video for 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, some of these cameras will take minutes of video. You really get to learn a lot about how an image shows you the deer when it got its picture taken. A video will show you how that deer reacted possibly where, very, very likely where that deer came from. And very likely, if you had it set long enough, where that deer is going and how it did and how it interacted with the camera and its surroundings. So like videos are huge. Like I think you learn so much from those types of videos. And then the great thing with cellular cameras and videos is all of a sudden you go, okay, that buck was at point X where I have a stand. 16 minutes later, he was at point Z where I have a stand. And all of a sudden, if you have these cameras positioned, and you can do it with digital cameras too, you just got to write down more notes and figure out like he was here at this time, he went to this one. But there's just so much that these cameras do that are valuable learning tools that will help you be more successful when you're in the fall woods. I really, really feel like.
Awesome. One more question for you. What is the wildest thing you've ever captured on a trail camera in all these years?
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, it was a mountain lion on the back of a cow elk.
No way.
Yeah. Yep. So my buddy and I, we run, I shouldn't say his hounds. He's an amazing houndsman. I just love dogs, and I love getting along for any type of hound use, and seeing how much those dogs love it. And so, a lot of times in my country down here where I live, snow is very, we can get it in just crazy amounts, or we can get very minimal amounts of snow. And sometimes it only lasts for a few days. So we run dry a lot, and we use digital trail cameras in known locations where lions tend to frequent that we've learned over the years. And we actually got a picture. It's a cow elk, and she's like arched up, and you can't see but you can see the forearm and the claws of the lion on her left side. Well, that'd be the wildest thing I ever got.
Amazing.
Yeah. And then, other than that, I was, last year on November 6th or 7th. I can't remember which day we reopened for our archery season. Obviously I can't use cells at that point. So, when I went to go climb up in my stand, I popped my digital card out of the camera and I climbed up in my stand. And once it got light enough, when I knew I wasn't going to be glowing like a Christmas tree up there, I went ahead, plugged in my card reader. And like 2 hours before I'd gone through there, like one of the biggest tall mountain lions that I have a picture of on a river bottom was through there. It was the first place I saw one. I was like, boy, it was me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh boy, well, you're
That'll fire me up.
Hope you keep moving and don't kill my deer.
Awesome. Well, Jace, this has been a blast. Folks we'll put a link to the trail cam test in the show notes, but great job. Thanks for joining us. And I hope your hunting season keeps on the pace that it's on so far.
I appreciate it, man. I very much appreciate you guys having me on, and enjoy writing for you. And it's really a blessing. And I thank you so much for having me.
You got it, man. At the beginning of the show, I promised you there'd be storytelling in the Field and Stream podcast. And that's exactly what we'll do every episode in our closing segment, Campfire, where a guest will read a classic story from the Field and Stream archives. Joining us again for this edition of Campfire is T. Edward Nickens, who will be reading a story of his own titled The Swamp, published in the 2024 issue of Field and Stream, the Wilderness issue. Take it away, Eddie.
On a cold fall morning, I ease into a swamp, rippling the still surface of the water where stars are spangled in a mirror image of the dark sky. As I pull each wader-clad boot from the muck, I can smell the dark landscape around me. To my nose, it is neither rank nor foul. Yes, there's a tinge of rotten egg smell, that sulfuric odor that speaks of decay. That's not what hangs in the nose. To me, a swamp smells clean and full of life, of lives lived and gone and lives yet to come. It promises a sunrise through fingertips of bare cypress and water oak that cleanses the soul. I'm in a place where time binds each element, mud, water, shrub, tree, like mortar between bricks. The passage of time is felt in every downed tree I almost trip over, in every gurgle from the mud. Time for rotting and renewal, and it's almost time for the ducks to show. "Boy, you love a swamp like Peter loved the Lord," said my farmer pal one day after I told him I'd found a new beaver pond on his property, small and tucked away so deep in his woods that I bet he didn't even know it was there. I think he meant it as a compliment. I took it as one. It may be that my love for swamps is rooted in my earliest years as a duck hunter. I didn't grow up on a river or on the coast. I didn't have access to duck impoundments or duck clubs. I had no private land to hunt on, no pals with duck boats. I did, however, have nearly 90,000 acres of public land nearby, surrounding 3 large public lakes, and those lakes were fed with tributary streams where beaver dams could run one after the other for a mile. I had good knees and a strong paddle stroke, and no aversion at all to getting a face full of spider webs or the occasional run-in with a coppermouth rattle moccasin. I had no way to hunt ducks but to find ducks, and nowhere to do that but in the gnarliest, hardest to get to swamps on the landscape. I nearly killed myself getting into some of these places, miles-long hikes down railroad tracks, the cross ties of which seemed purposefully designed to make it impossible to step from one to the next while wearing waders. Death marches through clear cuts. Only once in hundreds of duck hikes was I injured. That was a doozy, requiring surgery to stitch a tattered knee back together again. But blood, sweat, and cartilage tears were a small price to pay for the gifts of a swamp. When the ducks do come, they come too early, of course. They are ducks. They know the rules. I hear a screeching whistle up the creek, like a door on a rusty hinge, and move the shotgun muzzle toward the sound. It's not too early to shoot, but in a small swamp ringed with tall trees, it's simply too early to see. Duck-like shapes streak overhead too quickly to track with a gun. A bird splashes down, nearly close enough to touch. I freeze. Then the wood duck has second thoughts, and all I see is a froth of water as it takes to the sky. I throw the gun to my shoulder, but the duck vanishes in the treetops like a phantom of winged smoke. I slow my breathing and calm my nerves. There are rarely 2 or 3 wood ducks in a swamp. There are either none, or there are 10, or 20, or 50, which means there are more likely to come. The light is rising, like the air of a warming morning. Tops of the cypress trees aren't yet on fire with first light, but the scales are starting to tip in my favor. I can make out the horizontal line of the beaver dam at the head of the pond. If a bird dips below the tree line, it will not disappear. There's more squealing. I hear wings in the flooded woods behind me, and a pair of Liddies barrels in. No mere shapes now. I can pick out the crest of the drake and track the duck with its feet splayed. This time the shotgun comes up smoothly and with purpose, and I pull the trigger on my own terms. Morning in a wood duck swamp, and you can see it all coming. But here's the paradox. In a place fashioned by the passage of time, there's really not much time at all. 20 minutes, maybe a half hour, and the wood ducks are mostly done. I'll linger for a while with fingers crossed. I've shot mallards, black ducks, blue-winged teal, gadwall, northern shovelers, ringnecks, widgeon, and a dump truckload of big fat Canada geese in beaver swamps. But for sure, the dawned wood duck flight is the typical game. So I move behind a standing tree and wait. There is nothing in this world like a duck swamp at dawn. More ducks or no more ducks, it doesn't seem to matter much. I tell myself, I think I'll give it a bit more time.
You tell a good story, my friend.
Tell it, I can run my mouth.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for joining us on the podcast. And yeah, thanks everyone for listening and watching. And we'll see you next time on the Field and Stream podcast.